Take yourself out of the queue.
Come sit, stand. Welcome to the Oroville City Council meeting of August 2nd, 2022, where we are reconvening from closed session where direction was given and no action was taken. Will you stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance? Salute. Pledge. I pledge allegiance to under God, looking for a motion to adopt the agenda.
So move.
I'll second.
Motion carries with 7 yeses and 0 nos.
At this time, we will open the meeting up for public communication. This is the time in the meeting where the public can communicate with us on non-agenda items. So if there's anyone who wishes to speak, Madam Clerk.
Mayor Reynolds, we have 4 speakers. Our first speaker is Stephanie Irish.
Council. Am I close enough? Ooh. See, now I'm too much. Okay, I have a question on the districting, because I got into a little back and forth on Facebook, and I was told, you're not in our district, so just, you have no right to say anything. It was my understanding that I'm not clear on what the districting is totally, but it was my understanding that you guys still represented Oroville, regardless of what district you're in. You fought harder for your district or something, but yet everybody still has the same address of Oroville, California. So is that, he's not gonna go for District F, he's not gonna say anything or answer anybody in that because it's not his district? I'm very confused, and I think people need to be more clear on that.
Mr. Mayor, I can answer that if you'd like.
Mr. LeBron.
Each council member does represent the entire city. I mean, they are specific to a district. Each one will be elected from a district, but each council member has a responsibility to not only represent and advocate for their particular district in which they were elected from, but also advocate and represent the entire city. So no one council member is excluded from participating in a conversation for, let's just say hypothetically, a street that needs to be repaired at Feather River and Montgomery. That doesn't exclude the other 6 council members or 5 council members from participating in that decision. They will still participate in that. The expectation of a district representative would be that they would advocate and push for that harder. Now, where it's going to change a little bit for the council is that when we start discussing various projects throughout the year, and we do talk about these things, when there is an equal necessity for a project in 3 different districts, you'll have 3 different council members that will be vying for those dollars to go to their district. So it will create a little bit of a change, but not a lot. But the only one that is elected at large will be our mayor. Whoever that may be, the mayor represents and is elected at large. Each council member will represent a district, advocate for that district, but will also participate, again, in all decisions for everywhere in the city, if that answers your question.
And I'd like to comment on that too. I seen some comments on social media which don't really hold any relevance here at all, but those were not council members. They have absolutely no influence or power to make those decisions. It was simply back and forth. But I know that parts of our city, like this last year, part of our city received well over 80% of our code enforcement budget. So the part that I'm looking forward to is these budgets being divvied up in 6 equal increments so everyone can get some attention. So, if that answers your question. Next speaker.
Our next speaker is August Lincoln.
Council, I'm here concerning pavement, highway pavement. When I drive down Feather River Boulevard, approaching Maverick, when you go from Feather River Boulevard onto 162 or then Boulevard, right in front of Maverick service station, it hasn't been paved yet. You know, what's the problem?
That's Caltrans jurisdiction, sir.
Caltrans?
Yes.
So?
We have no authority over them.
Just
Their
call 'em up
schedule
again?
is their schedule.
I argued with Caltrans a lot of times, and if you keep hounding them, they'll come out and do it.
Their schedule.
Yeah, I think what the issue is down there, Mr. Lincoln, is that when Maverick went in and did all of the improvements to the frontage of their store, there was some holdup from Caltrans approving the egress into State Route 162. That held them up from Mavericks, because Maverick is responsible for that, not the city. So Maverick is doing that, and then when they finally got their encroachment permit to make the improvements to their frontage out there, they ran into problems with their contractor. So they're having issues with their contractor there. That work is scheduled with Mavericks. Mavericks is paying for that work. It's just a matter of getting it scheduled appropriately with the contractor, and I think everyone's struggling right now with labor and getting things scheduled. There's many issues that surround that.
They still spend the money, though.
Who's spending money?
Just get on the case.
If it was as
It's-
simple as just getting on their case, believe me, it's been done. We've talked with them over and over. They are working on that, and they are working through that process to get that done. We want it done just as much as you do. We don't enjoy driving over the torn up cement or seeing it or anything else. I mean, we are just as anxious to get it fixed as you are.
I'll check on you guys later.
All right.
Our next speaker is Bill Spear.
City Council, Vice Mayor. So I was real encouraged seeing the city get a raise and looking after our police department. And I would like to pray for our police department. I also had a suggestion. I don't know if we have a chaplain, but I know that it might help morale and might have a good impact on our police department. I know there's quite a few at the sheriff's department, and even the district attorney's office has a chaplain on staff. So just a suggestion. I'd like to also share a verse before I pray for the police department. And this is in Isaiah. It says, "Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness, who put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. Woe to those who are wise in their own eyes and clever in their own sight." You know, the police have been under attack in our country for a couple years now, and it reminds me of that verse right there. The people that, when the stuff happens, who they call are the ones they're attacking and try to defund and tear apart. You know, but when something happens, they're the first ones they call. And so, Father, I thank you for the Oroville Police Department, and Lord, we pray for more police officers, that even now as we're praying, that you would steer people's heart to want to come and serve, and to, in your word it says, the greatest of all will be the servant of all. And I can't think of anyone outside our military and our fire department who lay down their lives every day just to protect and to serve. And we pray for protection for all of the officers that we already have, and that you would encourage and strengthen them as they see all kinds of terrible. They see the worst of the worst. When they get called, it's going to usually something that's not very pleasant and spirit draining. And I pray that you would help it not to impact their families, that you would continue to raise them up strong in the spirit. And again, that you would gather more officers, put it on more people's hearts, and for the community to see the blessings that they are, and to speak blessings and not curses, to encourage and strengthen, and let our town rally together to come together and support, lift up, protect, and serve. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Our next speaker is Amy Jernigan.
Evening. So I am here tonight on behalf of the Butte County Fair as your board member to let you know that August is Fair Month. So Thursday evening, August 25th, is the opening night of the Butte County Fair. I have invitations for a director's reception that we're having at 5:30 on the fairgrounds. And Miss Butte County starts at 6 o'clock, which is super fun. I have a little niece participating this year. Friday nights are Tough Truck, Mud Bog. Saturday is our JLA auction at 10 o'clock, followed by my favorite, the Destruction Derby, in the evening. And then Sunday is a big rodeo and concert in the arena. So I'd really love to see y'all there. Personally wanted to come and invite you, let the public know it is Fair Month, and be prepared for corn dogs and carnival rides, right? So I'm going to leave some posters and your invitations over here with Jackie. Thank you. Any questions about?
No, I just want to say that was a fair statement.
Thank you. I appreciate your humor, Chuck.
Amy, thank you for all that you do. You are absolutely amazing. Bye.
Mayor Reynolds, that is the last of the public speakers for non-agenda items. I do have one speaker for for consent calendar.
Okay, was there an item on consent calendar they wish to speak on?
Item 6.
Okay, I'm looking for a motion to adopt the consent calendar, pulling item number 6.
I move that we adopt the consent calendar exempt item 6.
I'll second.
The motion carries with 7 yeses and 0 nos.
Item number 6 of the consent calendar reads approval of traffic signal mast arm replacement and electrical components by St. Francis Electric following traffic accident. Madam Clerk, you said there was a speaker on this item?
August Lincoln.
On December 21st, a vehicle struck the traffic light at Myers and the intersection anyway. And the bill came out to $34,160 to get it replaced. And that's good to pay the guy who did the work. But is the city going after the person who hit? Is the city getting reimbursed by that individual who hit the power pole?
Mr. Lincoln, we are going after the individual who hit the pole.
Pardon me?
We are going after the individual who hit the light pole. However, their insurance was substandard, but we are still continuing to pursue that individual for reimbursement.
So the city's getting reimbursed? You're not sure?
We hope to get reimbursed.
So you're not sure then right now?
Not sure.
We are sure we're getting a certain amount of insurance. He had limited insurance that didn't cover the entire cost of the repair. From there, what we'll do is we will proceed from there with collection activities for the balance that is on the account. So we do know we're going to get some of the money that his insurance will pay, but as far as the other, that could take days, weeks, years, to collect that money because it will go through a collection process.
You're joking though, right? Years.
No, I'm not.
No.
What do you do?
I wish he was joking.
Yeah.
That's not a joke.
But I wish you would put something in the letter when you send out a packet, so I don't have to question something like this. You know what I mean? That'd be a lot easier on all
Yes,
the
sir.
citizens if we know what's happening on something like that.
I will tell you just categorically, in every instance, when someone causes damage to city property, we make them responsible, if we can. Some people, we can't find them. Some people, we find damage, we don't, that like vandalism occurs at parks in the middle of the night. We don't know who it is.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
If we know who caused the damage, we will seek recovery.
Yeah.
And thank you for the feedback, Mr. Lincoln. We'll try to do better on that, to provide that info for you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any comments from the dais on item number 6? Hearing none, I'm looking for a motion to adopt item number 6 of the consent calendar.
So move.
Second.
Motion carries with 7 yeses and 0 nos.
Moving on to regular business, item number 10, budget adjustment for attorney fees.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and Council. What you have before you today is consideration of a budget adjustment for our 21-22 fiscal year attorney fees. What you have in front of you for your consideration is a overage that we had because of various things within the city attorney's office. Now, I think it's important that we break this down so everybody understands how this came down. Our general city attorney fees were $137,369,000 for a 6-month period, which is about average for what we normally do. That's for the normal activities, the day-to-day for our city attorney. We had several things that came up last year that were unusual and abnormal. A lot of those included personnel investigations, that most of which centered around at the police department, where there were various issues that went back and forth that required outside investigators, which typically are outside attorneys that do extensive investigations into that department. Those are typically ran through the city attorney's office as well in order to protect the personnel issues that exist within those investigations. So those fees are actually also included in there. There was multiple pitches motions that came from various defense attorneys to the city because of those investigations that required attorney intervention and legal defense at the court as well. So multiple ones of those did exist. That accounted for about $107,000 of the overages. Last year, we also had, the implementation of the code enforcement department. Some of those dollars that are in there, about $112,000 of that was for the implementation and the processes of the code enforcement department for, and you have to help me out with this, Mr. Belser, it's for the abatement of the houses or the?
Some of the fees go towards legal services in executing and authoring abatement warrants and legal direction when we try to go through the receivership process on properties.
So you will see some of those dollars, and I don't have the exact number in front of me, that will come back to the city eventually as revenue as we go through various processes with the code enforcement department in those houses. The last thing that we had involved in this was the different labor investigations and litigation that was necessary to defend the city over the course of the year. And that accounted for $118,000. So the total expenditure was $475,278 last year. Majority of that was due to various situations that arose. It is not normal for the city to experience that kind of exposure, but last year, unfortunately, because of situations that were not as a result of the council or quite frankly not as a result of your management staff, but those below us that we're creating had to be dealt with. And a lot of that required intervention from our city attorney and his colleagues. So with that, I am just asking for the budget adjustment that is included in the bottom of the report. We're asking for an adjustment of $209,828.31. That will allow us to settle this debt for last year's attorney fees.
Madam Clerk, do we have any comments from the public on this item?
Mr. Mayor, we do not have any public speakers on this item.
Councilmember Goodson wishes to speak.
Yes, Chief, you said several times overages from last year, right?
Yes, ma'am. I'm talking about last fiscal year.
Last fiscal year.
Yes, I'm talking about
So-
anything before.
So those overages, some of those overages should have been absorbed in the 2022 budget.
This is
to
for.
23?
Yes, ma'am. No, this should be in the 21,
1 to
22.
22?
Yes, ma'am, into that budget.
And none of this
'Cause
occurred,
These billings are from January 1 of 2022 through June 30 of 2022, which would be fiscal year 21, 22.
They will be in the last fiscal year that just closed.
so nothing's going to come forward in the next budget year of overages?
I do not believe so,
from
ma'am. I believe this
late
settles our account.
2022?
None
Does
of,
it settle the account?
none of these will come forward, that's correct.
The new, anything from here from July 1 forward, of course, will be included in the new fiscal year's budget. But this should be in last year's fiscal, and settle that, if I understand all of this correctly.
correct.
But I think the unwritten question, so I want to make sure we clarify that. Is there enough in the budget this year to cover that expense? Or are we going to have another supplemental appropriation? I think
We're
that
gonna have
was-
to have a discussion about that, and the reason why I say that is, for example, my firm assisted the city with, in somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 code enforcement cases. If we have another 50 this year, we are gonna have an overage.
Yes, you are.
I
So-
think probably.
So I think what we'll need to do is have that conversation and find out exactly what the needs are.
And since we're kind of treading into new area here with the code enforcement and things like that, that we really don't know what those are, maybe what we should do is revisit this every 90 days with Mr. Huber, so we can kind of give you kind of an idea of what to expect. That way, because I know it's heck to get hit with a bill, $200,000, like, holy smoke. I mean, that's, quite substantial. So I think if we do it every 90 days, you'll have a better idea of how it's progressing and what we should expect.
Thank you.
Councilmember Pittman.
Thank you. And I'm just looking for a rough generalized verbal discussion, but I know the attorney has, in the code enforcement category, and certainly it's a new department, and it's working, and we have some experience at how many cases we're going to have, but how many are we in this building here in terms of the numbers of houses and whatnot?
In this amount that is outstanding,
Yeah.
there are 34.
34 houses that were dealt with in terms of, and what were the end result of those?
Well, some are still ongoing. Most have been resolved. 6 of them went to receivership. So again, with many of these, you send the notices and you either get some sort of compliance or you get, it's across the board.
Right.
Some ignore you, some get a notice and they clean up the problem. And there's a lot of variation in between. So it's hard to say, here's what always happens. Some of these are still ongoing. Some of them are not. It just depends.
And the thing that I think the public needs to understand is we're doing a lot more than we ever did in the past. And I think
You're doing far more than you ever have done in the past.
Mike gives, that's the impression I want to give the public to understand that, yeah, we've got a bill here, but we're doing a lot more work than we ever did in the past. And maybe Mr. Belcher can add to that.
I just want to add that we're very cautious on the cases that we look into where we need legal direction. And we're going to be pushing anywhere between 2,500 and 3,000 cases this year. So if we use the attorney on 50 of these cases, and these are cases that are very sophisticated, you have to be, there's a process when you are going to enter someone's property and essentially take it away from them. And it's an expensive process, but it's a process in order to change the quality of life in our city, and it's a needed process.
I appreciate the discussion. I just wanted you to say it so the public can understand it. 'Cause
Yeah.
we see it, but I'd rather the public hear it and see it. Thank you.
And in many instances, resulting from this additional workload, we have been pulling back in some other areas to try and save costs.
Yeah.
And to be very candid, that's not fair to some of the other departments, and
Right.
we have rectified that. But I'm happy to have a review every 60, 90 days at your discretion to see, are we okay on the budget, or, how are we doing?
Gotcha.
Well, I appreciate that. I, for one, understand that if you're in business, which the city of Oroville is, you generate large amounts of income, the bigger the target you are. And I speak from experience. Sometimes you have to go after people. Sometimes people come after you, whether they're looking for a free meal or they're just trying to get paid, one way or the other. But I'm glad that this was a very timely deal here coming up. And you're right, Councilmember Pittman, with the volume of business, the costs do go up. So the city of Oroville is in great shape, and we are doing a lot more than we ever have. And I really, I don't have a problem with this. I understand it. Well, with that, having no public comment, no more comments from the dais, I'm looking for a motion to approve the budget adjustment for fiscal year 2021-22 in the amount of $209,828.31.
So moved.
Second.
Motion carries with 7 yeses and 0 nos.
Thank you, council.
And with that, we will open the public hearing at 5:04 PM. Item number 11, consideration of a resolution electing to have the city of Oroville become subject to the California Uniform Public Construction Cost Accounting Procedures and consideration of an ordinance amending Title II of the Oroville Municipal Code, amending Chapter 2.24, Bureau of Purchase, concerning the implementation of the Uniform Construction Cost Accounting Act procedures.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Yes, again, this is a request to consider a resolution to adopt an ordinance to amend or to add Article 4 to Chapter 2.24 of our municipal code for the Oroville, to elect Oroville to become subject to the Uniform Public Construction Cost Accounting Act, or the Act. The current municipal code purchasing ordinance is restrictive due to the low purchasing limit. And this creates additional work for staff having to go through the formal bidding process for each project, for whether we purchase it or it's a project of $25,000 or more. The proposed resolution opts for the city to become subject to the procedures set forth in the Uniform Public Project Construction Cost Accounting Act. Adoption of this resolution will simplify the procurement process for public projects by eliminating the need for the formal bidding process for such projects up to a limit allowable according to the Public Contract Code of $200,000. Any projects that exceed that $200,000 threshold will have to go through the formal bidding process. The proposed ordinance allows for public works projects in the amount of $60,000 or less to be performed by the agency's own force account and resources, or negotiated by contract or purchase order. Many participating agencies appreciate the program because it has given them more leeway in the execution of their public works projects under a certain dollar amount, and it has sped up the award process for those projects. It has expedited project delivery, reduced time and effort and expense associated with the bidding of those projects, less than $200,000, and it has simplified administration of those projects. So there's no fiscal impact for adopting this proposed resolution and ordinance. However, staff believes in doing so, it will streamline the process for our projects going forward and allow staff to be more efficient in that endeavor. With that, the recommendation is to adopt Resolution 985, electing the City of Oroville to become subject to the California Public Construction Cost Accounting Act, and to waive the first reading and introduce by title only the Ordinance 1866.
Madam Clerk, do we have any comments or questions from the public on this item?
Mr. Mayor, I do not have any public comment on this item.
Do we have any comments or questions from this dais? Councilmember Goodson.
Could you go over very quickly that bidding process?
Yes, so if a public project or public works project, say the front facade for the city hall, is estimated to be less than $200,000. What we do is we send out a advertisement to request contractors to be on our preferred bidding list. And we would request informal bids from those contractors as opposed to putting out a public RFP for a contract. We would call 3, 5 contractors on that list who are qualified in that area for that proposed project and request for bids from them. And we would then decide from those received bids which would be the best to move forward.
Councilperson Goodson, too, just to add to that, it doesn't take the council out of the equation. Those bids still have to come back to council for final approval and awarding of the bid.
Turn on your microphone, please.
I'm sorry about that, Councilmember Goodson. It allows the city to right now advertise for construction companies. Do you want to be on our preferred provider list? If you say yes, then we'll vet those individuals. We'll keep a list. If there's a project that comes in under $200,000, it's called $195,000. We can get informal bids, or excuse me, we can get bids from anybody on that list. And you can pick a number, as Don mentioned, 3, 5, however many you want. You can do an informal bidding process where you just ask them, here are the plans, give us a bid. Rather than advertising in the newspaper, putting it on the website, going out for a formal bidding process, which requires all kinds of notifications to agencies and unions, and it's time consuming. And so with this process, you can pre-vet these construction companies or contractors. You can go straight to, if you have a masonry project, or if you have a concrete project, or if you have if you have a framing project, you can go straight to a framer or straight to a concrete person. And so you don't have to go out to bid. It makes it easy on staff where they can get the best price and then put it on the agenda so that we get a problem solved fairly quickly.
And this is across the board, department-wide for the city. So if it's an IT project, any IT project that would be estimated at under $200,000 would fall within this scope as well.
I've got a little experience in that, and I wasn't even aware of this item here, but I've got a lot of experience in that area. A lot of projects that I do, especially government projects, you have to be a qualified bidder. You have to have proven that you can handle the job before you can submit a bid. They won't even let you bid if you're not pre-approved and qualified. So it does expedite the program process to have all qualified bidders. I think that we learned our lesson on our public safety bill.
Yes, we have. And so we would advertise this list annually, and so those contractors would have to reapply annually to get recertified to be on that preferred bidders list.
Good, thank you.
Yes.
Councilmember Pittman.
Yeah, I think an example of this was when the spillway project failed. DWR had that with Simblin Bold, I think, was the first contractor on site to start the initial work, and then Kiewit became the final contractor, but that's what they had. They had that already set up to go, and they started it. Of course, it was emergency work, but still, the same ordinance here applies to the state of California. So that's a good example of how somebody started working right away, and then everything else followed through with that.
Right.
So it's a good process.
Councilmember Smith.
Yeah, no, I think this is good. I would appreciate if we worked on that marketing, letting some contractors, they're kind of spooked by, the whole government, that arduous process, but there may be more local, and sometimes that's a little frustrating.
Yeah.
You'd like to see more of these awards going to local folks. So if we just let them know, hey, this is an opportunity, and maybe the bar is a little bit, not that we don't want unqualified, but
Right.
that the process is a little more
So there's
digestible.
There's parameters within this that we have to send it to the contractors' exchanges. There's certain exchanges that within Butte County that we have to send it to receive the quotes or bids from those qualified contractors.
Okay, well, hopefully we'll see some more local folks get involved.
Yes.
That'd be great.
We hope so as well.
If there are no more comments from the dais, I'm looking for a motion to adopt resolution number 9085 and waive the first reading and introduce by title only ordinance number 1866.
So move.
Motion carries with 7 yeses and 0 nos.
We'll Going for a record here, all sevens. Item number 12, annual assessments for the city's consolidated landscape and lighting maintenance assessment districts, zones 1, 7, 11, 16, and 17.
Mayor and council members, again, this is the same as the previous meeting. This is declaring the intention to levy and collect those assessments. And so we will begin with recusals for the landscape lighting maintenance assessment district zones 1, 7, 11, 16, and 17 with Mayor Reynolds, Councilmember Smith, and Councilmember Pittman recusing themselves. The power is all yours. You had a Thor face, wielding the hammer.
Ammo.
So funny. Do we have any public comment on this item?
Vice Mayor Thompson, I do have one speaker, August Lincoln.
Vice Mayor, Council, I live in Zone 7. If anybody goes and reads this report, it's what, how many pages? 50 pages?
A little more.
By the time you start at the front, you forgot what you read in the back. You know what I mean? But anyway, in Zone 7, I don't think these engineers came out to my area and checked the area out that good. I can tell because some of the problems we had in the past are still there. So if you, I'm just speaking for Zone 7. I don't know about the other areas. If they're not interested, that's their problem. But in my area, they say they take care of 75 trees. I've counted 65. That's a way beyond. And they say they're there to improve, to show the district to improve egress and ingress off of the highway into Grand Avenue. We used to have red strips on both sides so you can see the oncoming traffic. So when you turn left or you turn right, especially left, if there's a truck or car in front there, you can't see the traffic coming. So that puts a litigation on somebody, either the city or these people. If I do get in an accident on that, I'll be coming to you and say, they didn't follow what this guy's recommended. So I'm saying that before you approve it on this, on Zone 7, I would prefer that somebody go out there and check what these guys are doing before you go out and approve just Zone 7. I don't know about the rest of the areas. Could be better, could be worse. But in my area, the city, the fire hydrant, I've lived there for 14 years. It hasn't been painted red in front of the fire hydrant for the last 14 years. So anybody can park in front of the fire hydrant. God help those people if somebody's house catches fire. So it's the city's responsibility to go out there and ensure that what these guys are reporting to you are true. In fact, they should have been like the grand jury. This is what we found, and this is what it should be fixed. Because I'm paying an assessment fee. And I want my money to go make my safety in my community as safe as possible. And it's your responsibility to make sure that these people, what they put down in writing, is carried out. And I hold all of you responsible. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And Mr. Lincoln, I will review this report again with my Public Works Manager, and we will address those concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments from this dais? Having no comments, looking for a motion.
I move that we adopt Resolution 9086.
Motion carries with 4 yeses and 3 recused.
Great. Great job. Okay. Yeah. Are we on item number 13? Okay.
And
I-
well, I was just going to say, for item 13 and 14, Mr. Hatley can recuse himself for both. He is the only council member required to be recused. So item 13 is for landscape lighting maintenance assessment district zones 2 through 6, 8 through 10, 12 through 15, and the newly added 18 Ruddy Creek.
Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers on this item?
Mr. Mayor, we do not have any speakers on this item.
Do we have any questions or comments from this dais? Having none, looking for a motion to adopt resolution number 9087.
So moved.
Second.
Motion carries with 6 yeses and 1 recused.
Moving on to item number 14, annual assessments for the city's consolidated benefit assessment districts, zones 1, 4, 5, and 9. No, he's on 14 too. So there's no comment on this? Ms. Nevers? Have you covered it?
For 14, yes.
Yes, okay.
I apologize.
Do we have any comments from the public on this item?
Mr. Mayor, I do not have any speakers on this item.
Do we have any comments or questions from this dais? Having none, looking for a motion to adopt resolution number 9088.
So moved.
Second.
Motion carries with 6 yeses and 1 recused.
Our next item, 15, is for the annual assessments for the Consolidated Assessment District, Zones 2, 3, and 6 through 8, and council members Smith and Pittman will be recusing themselves due to proximity.
Madam Clerk, do we have any questions from the public on this item?
Mr. Mayor, I do not have any speakers on this item.
Do we have any questions or comments from this dais? Having none, looking for a motion to adopt resolution number 9089.
So moved. Second.
Motion carries with 5 yeses and 2 recused.
Moving on to item number 16, annual special tax for the city's community facilities, district number 2006-1, West Side Public Safety Facilities, and district number 2006-2, Public Safety Services, for fiscal year 2021-2022.
And this is for Proposition 218, so that these taxes can be levied through the assessor's office.
I know you're trying to save time by putting 2 words together. I do it too. Do we have any questions or comments from the public on this item, Madam Clerk?
Can I,
Mayor, stop.
should Mr. Hatley recuse himself from this item?
Yep.
From this item? No, and I'm looking at this and I'm seeing that this information is not correct. I think we need to pull this staff report.
I don't think we can. The assessments are due to the tax roll by the 10th of August. That won't allow us enough time to get it on the tax roll.
Prop 218 is supposed to go specifically with the LMAD and the bad districts.
Ms. Nevers, at this point, can we just stop for a second and
Yes.
ask Mr. Hatley to recuse himself from this entire conversation while we figure out what
Yes.
we're going to do here? Thank you.
Would you like to speak to the administrator?
Yeah.
It's okay if we have an extra 218. We just won't use it if you don't need it. It's okay.
Because we don't need it for the 2 CFDs. They're not bound by Prop 218. It's only the assessments because they're assessments. And the
It's okay.
CFD charges are special taxes.
We just won't use it. but
The resolutions are correct. I
The
believe.
resolutions are
So-
correct, but I apologize, the language in the staff report is not correct. So,
So we're okay to move forward,
We-
Mr. Attorney? Yes. Okay. Do we have any questions or comments from the public on this item?
Mr. Mayor, I do not have any public speakers on this item.
And Mr. Mayor, just so I can be clear, so the record is clear, the agenda item has been properly listed. Some of the information in the staff report is not necessarily correct, but the public is on notice. They've been given sufficient notice that if they're interested in this item, that they could be here at a council meeting to talk about it. So
Okay.
it does comply with the four corners of the law, so to speak. Perhaps
you.
not necessarily the spirit of, getting everything correct all
The
at once,
actual
but.
law.
Yes.
But no, but it is within the four corners of the actual law, we are okay.
Okay, do we have any questions or comments from this dais? Having none, looking for a motion to adopt Resolution 9099 and Resolution number 9091.
Was it 9090?
9090 and 9091.
Oh, I have 9090. Is that what I
Two of
said?
them.
That's not what you said.
091.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
I just want to make sure the record was correct. You said 9099.
Did I? Thank you, Mr. Lando. I always feel safe in your arms, sir. So the correct numbers for the resolutions are 9090 and 9091.
And 9092.
Nope, that's the next
That's the
item.
the
next
next
item.
item?
That's item number 17. Sorry, sir,
Get it
you're out
right
of
now.
sequence.
I motion that we adopt the resolution 9090 and resolution 9095.
Motion carries with 6 yeses and 1 recused.
Okay, moving on to item number 17, a resolution certifying to the County of Butte the validity of the legal process used to place direct charges on the secured tax roll for fiscal year 2022, 2023.
again, this is the same resolution. This resolution is specific to landscape lighting maintenance assessment districts and the bad assessment district.
Do we have any questions from the public on this item?
Mr. Mayor, I do not have any public speakers on this item.
Do we have any questions or comments from this dais? Councilmember Riggs.
Can you explain what a bad assessment is?
It's the benefit assessment district. I apologize, I used the acronym.
Thank you. You don't want them to feel sad about being bad.
Right, they are not bad.
Okay.
Most of the acronyms are
benefited.
not bad.
Point of view.
No, if there are no more comments or questions from this dais, I'm looking for a motion to adopt resolution number 9092.
So moved.
Second.
Motion carries with 7 yeses and 0 nos.
And with that, we will close the public hearing at 5:26 PM. Okay, reports, discussions, correspondence. Are there any announcements or reports from council? Councilmember Riggs.
I just wanted to recognize Mr. Legrone. August 13th will be his 20-year anniversary at the city. So congratulations.
I'd like to comment a little bit on that as well. Bill and I, or Mr. Legrone and I, or Chief Legrone, or City Administrator Legrone, and I have gotten to know each other pretty well over the last few years. And we've locked horns a few times, we've tussled many times, but in the end, I believe that we always had mutual respect for one another. And he has taught me a lot about perspective. And I have really enjoyed working with him in whatever capacity it is. When you have two people that think they're right most of the time. You're strong personalities, but he's a very wise individual. Even though he's a little bit younger than me, he takes on a big brother role sometimes, and I just really appreciate that. Thank you for the experience, sir. Councilmember Pittman.
Yeah, we just, was on consent, item number 9, the Lau family community agreement with the old Girdler building. I just want to kind of say congratulations to the Lau family to have such a new asset to the community. We've been working on that project about the other side of 8 to 10 years that I know of. And to see the agreement finally go through council, I just wanted to make a mention of it because there's been a lot of discussions. It will be a new museum to the community and a great use for the building. So looking forward to that and congratulate all concerned to that. The other thing I want to mention, of course, the Friday, the Oroville Dam Safety Oversight Committee met up at the Southside Community Center. It's the first time that committee has met face-to-face for a long time. And many of the issues were discussed and presented, and if you have any questions, you can go to the website and look at the detail. It's about a 2-hour-long conversation. The Natural Resources Secretary for the State of California, Wade Crowfoot, actually chairs that meeting. So we also have a good amount of discussion about things that are going on with the dam, the project. They had a long list of repairs that's almost 2 pages long that's going on up there with the facility. So just to make you aware of it. The safety issues, everyone talks about potentially there's a crack on the spillway gates. That was pretty much satisfied as being not a problem. And you've seen some announcement they are going to start rebuilding the cables that lift the gates, 1 gate per year for the next 8 years. So it's an interesting way to repair that particular item. And then the flood operations is putting together a new plan that hasn't been updated for probably 2 decades, I think, in terms of how they're going to operate with flood activity. So looking forward to that. Just to let you know, there's a lot of good work being done by the state on a lot of projects and a lot of equipment around there. The interesting thing was they had to get some signage up because they have the new road from the top of the dam down by the spillway to get to the spillway boat ramp, and nobody seems to know where that is. So they're having to put some signage up there to show them where that is. So, but just a lot of work being done. And you're certainly welcome to go through it. I don't want to go through the detail, but the website has all the details in the PowerPoint. And just to let you know, there's a lot of work being done on the dam, and it's not being forgotten about by any means. So that's all I had.
I'd like to comment a little bit on that too, is because I serve on that committee as well, and that was actually our 11th meeting since the spillway failure, but we were only able to meet in person, I believe, 1 or 2 times before COVID and all of those things hit. So I would be remiss if I didn't mention how hard your Senator Jim Nielsen and your Assemblyman James Gallagher work for you. They are amazing representatives as well as the other members that serve on that committee. When we have me and Councilmember Pittman from the city, but then you have all the commanders of the state agencies and that are there. These are the people who are in leadership. And when we had many homeless encampments encroaching in our river at that time, when we were able to meet last time, we had a mini meeting out in the foyer of the Southside Community Center and with Assemblyman Gallagher and the commanders, and they asked what we needed. We said we need jurisdiction, cohesiveness. We need to work together. And it was the next day that there was 2 helicopters from the Highway Patrol and that patrolling our river. So a lot of people don't realize that this river is not in our jurisdiction. The actual water is the jurisdiction of the California Highway Patrol. And then the sides of the river are the fish and game. And then you go up a little bit higher in your state parks. And then you get up, I believe, somewhere above the trail, Mr. Legron, is the high water mark is the city of Oroville. there's nobody camping in those areas. They're all down by the water. So it's very hard to get or penetrate through those agencies because a lot of people, if they don't see it, they're not. But I'll tell you what, Assemblyman Gallagher, he gave the order and they were there and it was nice. And then, of course, COVID and everything else hit, so we're going to have to refresh that. But I'm just saying that a lot of people think that their representatives aren't working hard for them. They are, and it's nice to see it from a front row seat. Councilmember Smith.
I'd like to thank Chief LaGrone for the opportunity of experiencing a ride-along. It was very revealing as to some of the things that law enforcement encounter on a day-to-day basis. They wear many hats. They're oftentimes engaging the public at a low point in their life, and they're a steady voice. I remember, I think, Chief LaGrone talking about the job of a law enforcement officer is bringing calm to chaos, something to that effect. One of the hats is counselor, psychologist, therapist, one of the many hats. But I was just really impressed by watching our law enforcement engage the public, the professionalism, and the way they handled various situations, some of them high stress, and really seeking, I think, the best interest of the public, even when the public wasn't always making good choices. There was an incident with a minor, and I was just really impressed at the compassion that Chief LaGrone showed in trying to speak to this individual who probably didn't make the best of choices. And so there's just watching our law enforcement in the element, engaging the public professionally, respectful, and really seeking people's best, their best interest. You know, it wasn't always about an arrest. It wasn't always about, putting somebody in the car in cuffs, but it was really trying, and even in those circumstances, it was, this is really good for you. Can you imagine being put in the back of a squad car in handcuffs as being something that's good for you? But, you think about making bad choices in your life, and sometimes people do need a wake-up call. And that shocking moment, but it's not done in a way that engenders hostility or anger. But it's just, this is really, I'm doing this for you, and it's just really got that sense. I just appreciate that. I think that goes a long way to a quality community where you have law enforcement really cares about what they do. And I just want you to, maybe you're putting on a show for me, but I really appreciate it. My level of respect goes up tremendously, and I just want to say thank you for what you do.
Yeah, I'd like to comment on that too. I'm sorry. I forget about a lot of the experience I've had in the 2 weeks in between the meetings, but I rode along with Chief LaGrone as well, and it was amazing to see the compassion. Law enforcement work is not all about punishing someone. In fact, there was very little of that. What there was a lot of compassion, and to the point where you're dealing with a lot of people who have obviously made bad decisions, and their struggles are self-inflicted, but still the compassion of the walking on the hot pavement and giving them cold water, giving cold water for the dog's feet, because we just know what's going on, but he sees things that a lot of us wouldn't, but it's due to his experience. And I'll tell you what, I don't know if I'm going to use the word level of respect, because I already respected him, but I will tell you that when you're in that car and C1 gets on that radio, people are moving. They don't fear the position. They respect the man. And I just want to say that it was amazing. Thank you. Councilmember Smith, are you still in the queue?
No.
That's probably why I don't talk a lot, is because I get emotional about it. But to see people in their element, what they do, because I know a lot of people see me and they think, where did this guy come from? You know, what is he, you know? But I'll tell you, when you see me in my element, I can lay brick, I can lay block. And to see him, what he's a natural at, was amazing to me. So I'm always impressed with seeing someone do what they love. Is there anyone else for council announcements? Future agenda items. None, having none. Administration reports, Mr. Lando.
Excuse me. Thank you, Don. Stealing Dawn's thunder, as well as Wes and Matt. We're working with a number of developers who are looking at market rate housing. Met with folks from Orchard Crest, met with folks from Wilbur Road, the Tandys, Eric and Scott Tandy. We're finishing an agreement. Dawn's doing the work on the agreement for the Ophir Road project. We're starting the environmental review, which will probably take a year to get done. Oro Bay has a new owner. They want to work with the Wilbur Road property as well. So that specific plan will probably be combined with the property across the street. Dawn and I met with Steve Lucas from the Local Agency Formation Commission to talk about an annexation process moving forward. One of the things we'll be coming back to council with over probably the next 6 months is an annexation plan. Phasing and whether council's interested in it at all, because it would be council directed. Obviously, the goal of the Local Agency Formation Commission is to unify the community. So their desire and their strong desire is to push this area to be one community, as they have elsewhere in the county, recognizing that that will be quite a community conversation. That's my report.
Ms. Bergstrom.
I have nothing exciting to share.
Chief Tens.
Yeah, yesterday was 1 month since the transition. I just wanted to report back things are running smooth. The firefighters that transitioned over from the city to CAL FIRE are doing a fantastic job. It's a lot of work. You're coming into a large organization, a lot of intimidation, a lot of stuff to learn. But they really are doing a fantastic job. They've jumped right into the system. We have guys that are out on state incidents right now assisting with that, helping out with overtime all throughout the county and vice versa back into the county and to the city. But I just want to report back that everything's going smoothly with the transition.
Great. I'd like to comment on that a little bit. I ran into the battalion chief, and just so happening, we sat next to each other in a restaurant, and I asked him how it was going, and he said, it was the 13th, I believe, of July, and he says, I've worked every day since we made the transition. I said, sounds like you're making a lot of money. He said, I've never made so much money in my life. I said, that's great. He said, and I'll tell you what, he said, I never would have imagined. He said, before when we would respond, we had 2 engines. We would get to the fire and we would have to assess and try and request other equipment. He said, now the same fire is, they assess it from the satellite. And when we pull up, it's all at the same time. We have 5 engines, a bulldozer, and a helicopter. He said, so I'm really happy to be part of that. And I was, because we put a lot into this. This is a very contentious, emotional thing for a lot of people. And it's nice to, and he told me, he says, I got to tell you, I was a naysayer, but now he said, everything you told me was true. I said, well, thank you. I appreciate that. I didn't get into this to lie to people. So I appreciate it, and I'm glad that they're happy. Councilmember Smith.
Yeah, this is an anecdotal-based question, but my wife loves to listen to the scanner, so it's a family tradition now. Since we lived in the fire area, we've had to be evacuated multiple times. That's one of the things that moved us to the city. That being said, it seems like to us that with dispatching assets to calls, fire calls, that there seems to be more hands on deck, more assets being sent at any given time. Is that just us thinking that, or is there actually kind of a change in protocol and now that this transition has happened when assets are dispatched?
Yeah, so if you're listening, you'll hear the indices in the morning, and that basically kind of gives us the index of how fast stuff will burn and, you know, how far it'll go without getting too complicated. And based off those indices, they'll change the response model. So if it's a high-level dispatch because grass tends to burn, you know, faster on the conditions of the weather, they're automatically going to send more resources, if that answers your question. Okay. But on a standard response, you'd get a standard response, and then based off the weather, you may get more resources initially.
I guess what I'm looking for is that before it was when we had a call into Oroville, it was Station 1. And then if there were more assets required, then, you know, that mutual aid would kind of kick in. Now it just seems like because it's one large organization, it just feels to me like there's a different response. Listening to the scanner, again, it's anecdotal, but it just seems like that there's a change there. Maybe there isn't, but.
In a standard response, there's not a lot of change. I mean, there is, but there isn't with the amount of resources you speak of, but you will see more overhead respond, more chief officers, safety officers, you know, stuff of that sort.
Okay, great, thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Attorney? Mr. Belser?
I'd like to report on, I've actually been in communication. Back in April, you guys authorized a housing navigator, part-time, 20 hours a week, to work within the city, go out with code enforcement and law enforcement, municipal law enforcement. And as an outreach, I've been in contact with Don Taylor from the Housing and Homeless Administrator of Butte County, and they actually have been through the hiring process now. They've actually hired for that position. And I'm meeting with them in the next week sometime. They'll be introduced to the different groups in the city, my group, the MLEs, the officers. So that person is, you know, aware of who they're going to be working with. They're going to go out on details with us for the outreach to the homeless folks and try to get them into housing. So that's something you guys approved back in April. It's quite a process to get through the hiring portion of it, but they did find an individual that'll be working with us. And then as far as my team goes, we have 3 abatement warrants. I call it in the hopper now that are in the process of being served. 2 are in the south side, 1 are in Thermalito, and these, again, are on houses that are vacant, that are filled with squatters and are a hazard to our community. As far as my team goes, I've sent them to Butte College through an 8-hour de-escalation class. It's just to further their safety out into the field. I've also outfitted them with radios. I was able to find some radios that weren't being utilized in the city, so we didn't have to pay for new radios. And found a vacant channel, worked with IT to get them on that channel. And just to further their safety, I know where my team's at now at all times. I can answer up to them on the radio. Additionally, it's important in, you know, it's something that's strange, but saving of fuel. You know, before they would have to be out in the field. If they needed information, they needed to come back to the office. Now they can just radio up to our assistant, Kelly, or myself. We can punch the information on the computer, keeps them out in the field, and saves on fuel. We have a vacancy in the code enforcement technician position. We flew that position. It closed on the 27th. I have several applications to go through now. We're moving forward with the hiring process to fill that position. And that's about it.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Belser. Ms. Nevers?
Yes, we received a request from the Oroville Cemetery District to provide assistance with the removal of some hazardous dead trees at the Oroville Cemetery on Feather River Boulevard. After assessment from the city's arborist and the contract P31 arborist, it was deemed that 18 of those trees are in fact dead and are hazardous and need to be removed. The Oroville Cemetery's district's concern is that their budget does not meet what was proposed for the estimate of the removal of those trees. And so what is being recommended is to have the cemetery district pay what they can from this year's budget, Oroville to assist in filling in the gap with the contract that we have with P31, with the anticipation that the Oroville Cemetery District will reimburse us their next fiscal year. I wanted to get a consensus of the council as this cost came in for an estimated removal for $25,520. And it's above our spending authority.
And what's their budget that they have available?
I haven't received confirmation of their budget. What we have gotten out of conversation is about $20,000 to $23,000 is their budget
So pretty
between
close.
various cemeteries.
Okay. Yeah, I spoke to them as well, and in my opinion, it is it's obviously a public safety hazard. The place has been shut down because of it. So I would be in agreement with that. Councilmember Pittman?
Yeah, thank you. And if I remember right, too, there was a trade-off that when the cemetery issues were done, they would take over the city's care along the sidewalk in the front there versus their, I can't remember the name of it, but they take care of a place that we don't have to worry about anymore. Along between the fence and the sidewalk, that landscaping.
The frontage area?
Yeah, yeah. That was kind of a agreement that they're taking care of for the long term, so I have no problem with a partnership helping them remove something that's obviously a safety hazard. Sounds good.
Isn't the frontage now, now it's a city ordinance, right, that they're required?
To, yes, install the frontage.
Yes, okay. But in the, when the agreement was made, it was them taking over that.
Right.
Okay, yeah.
If it's the will of the council, then I'll bring back a staff report at the next meeting with the official numbers as to what the city's portion of that cost would be to approve this. But again, the cemetery will be closed until such time that those trees are moved, and it's anticipated that it would take 8 days to remove the trees. But again, I'll bring back a staff report with the official numbers as to what the city's cost would be, and with a letter from the cemetery district stating that they would reimburse the city at such time at the next fiscal year. Excuse me.
For the record, is that the consensus of this council? Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Ruth?
Well, I enjoyed hearing about all your ride-alongs, so I'm wondering if Mr. Legrone would consider directors having a ride-along too. I think
In the back.
I want you to know I've never been in a patrol car on a ride-along or otherwise. I've never been in one at all. Anyway, it sounds like fun. I wanted to let you know I finally got around to changing my name. So you'll see Duncan a lot more on things now.
Okay, that's
so
why I always just say Ruth, because we don't know.
I'm finally changing it. So as far as departmental, we're having a very hectic software training schedule, at least 2 full days a week. So sometimes it feels like another full-time job. So we're trying to keep up on everything and get that done too. But we're getting everything done.
Great. Chief Legrone?
I just want to publicly recognize a few of my officers over the past 2 weeks. Officer Olive, Officer Finkbinder, Lieutenant Zarate, and Officer Iverson have been on calls where a person is overdosed. They've administered Narcan and saved 2 lives. Those people are still with us. I'm not sure of their current medical condition or how their recovery is going, but if it had not been for their intervention, these individuals may not be with us. Lieutenant Zarate and Officer Iverson, that was as late as 3:45, 3:50 this afternoon. We were in the middle of a field behind DeLalo Olive, and a young man, 30 years old, had unfortunately made a bad decision, used too much narcotics that were not prescribed to him, potentially some fentanyl as well, and he was on his way out. But the intervention of the officers and our firemen and our paramedics, brought this young man back. I mean, to the point that he was gone to he was sitting up before we left. So it's quite amazing to see that. I've been very pleased with the police department as I've recently it's become necessary for me to push a patrol car again around. And I've enjoyed what I'm doing. I've had most of you ride with me. I've had Councilperson Goodson was with me. We spent several hours. We made some good friends with some individuals. I mean, we do what I like to call it is we just do community caretaking, whatever that is. You're all things to all people at all times, being nothing to anybody ever. So we are just, we do what we have to do. I do enjoy the fact that I drove Councilperson Smith across town probably faster than he's ever been across town, completely on the wrong side of the road on Oroville Boulevard. And the reason is because we were responding code to a situation where a very young child was in peril. And it was necessary to do that in order to protect the child from the individual. So it was controlled chaos. It's nice to do that to council people so you understand the extreme liability that you get exposed to on a regular basis that you're unaware of. But I just want to report back to you that your police department, your MLEs, your dispatchers, your firemen, all your public safety, they are all working at a very high level for you. They're representing you well. I'm very proud of all of them. They've done a wonderful job taking care of me, and I just couldn't be prouder of them. I mean, they're amazing people, and thank you for investing the time in our department to come and see what's going on. It's important for you to see that because it isn't cops. It isn't what you see on TV. I mean, that's great, and that's wonderful, and that's entertaining, but that's not the work.
It brings a whole new meaning to the term "scared straight."
Yes.
I would like to comment on that as well because I received a phone call from, I think that most of us know Larry Burns, and Larry Burns is a man of substance whom I think anyone who knows him respects him. And he is the chaplain for the district attorney, the first one and only chaplain for the district attorney. And he called me and he was in tears of what he had witnessed. And he said he was in front of Rayleigh's. He was just going into Rayleigh's. And there was a man there who was non-responsive, and officers showed up, and he said they administered CPR on this man for several minutes until he was responsive, had a pulse, and he said, I've never seen anything like that. They worked on him like he was their own family. I don't think we can ask for any more than that. That is amazing. And I believe, I've spoken to Chief Legrone, and I believe that we do have some citations coming forward, but they're in the works. And I know some people might go, well, that's their job. You know what? I've seen in that level them perform their jobs and them not, and officers that were not interested in performing their jobs. These officers are doing an amazing job. We got a good crew together. It's nice to see, nice to watch, because when I got here 3.5 years ago, the police department was not in good shape. And there was a lot of bad behavior, and I think that most of that has gone. And we've got a good group, so this is not the same deal as it was. And a lot of that we can thank Chief Legrone for going back down there and showing them the right way how to be a police officer. So, and he is very hands-on. There's no sitting in the office. He's out pushing that patrol car around.
Mr. Mayor, too, if I could just take another minute, I'd like to acknowledge Jordan's Crossing as well, because they've extended the opportunity to the police department to give us another tool in our toolbox of if there are individuals that are truly seeking and needing and wanting help, that we can take those individuals to their office and they will make an assessment of that individual and take them from there. I took advantage of that one time last week. Unfortunately, I don't think it took, because I did see the individual the next day carrying around a fifth of whiskey, which I think that's probably not part of the Jordan Crossing program. But, you know, it's nice to have that tool. It's a very significant tool for us to have, because there are those people that are looking for that resource that don't know where to get it. That, you know, when you talk to these people, it breaks your heart, because they're young men. I mean, there's young men, they're young women, they're 22, 23, 24 years old, and you look at them and it's like, gee, many Christmas, they're babies. I realize they're adults. They're younger than my children, though, so I look at them and it's, you know, what can we do to get them to where they need to be? Because what would I want somebody to do for my child? And I just want to thank Pastor Spear for offering that to us and giving us that. And I'm sorry that we're probably going to bring you a lot of unsuccessful cases, but I'm really going to be happy when we bring you that successful one. So, but thank you. I mean, and, you know, any of the other providers that are willing to do that, we're willing to bring you people. I mean, that's, you know, I don't want to waste their time, but we're always looking for that for individuals that can get them into this type of a thing, because it is a powerful thing to see somebody grab onto something like that and actually change their life.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, and I'm sorry, I'm going to comment on this too, because I have also called Pastor Spear late at night even. He was already in bed, but he woke up, he took the call, had an emergency situation where an employee of mine, his son was, I'm not sure of the drug that he was on, but he was out of his mind. And we explained the situation to him. He was beating his mother and father. And Pastor Spears said, get him here, just get him here. And we did. And he was successful for 3 or 4 months, but, you know, then he went back out. But I'll tell you, Pastor Billy Spear, I've known him all my life, and he is the real deal. And I know a lot of pastors, I know a lot of bricklayers, I know a lot of painters, but I'm telling you what, there are pastors who are in ministry, and there are pastors who are in business, and you, sir, are in ministry. Thank you. With that, we will adjourn the meeting till August 16th, 2022 at 4 p.m. It's his birthday. Oh, no, wait. That's his.
You know what I did? Okay. I read the wrong agenda item and it threw me off. I skipped the